Hello, everybody. I would like to introduce our next speaker. This is Lanski from Node. He has a proposal on how to overcome the limits of solo staking.
Thank you very much. How are we doing? Okay, so you have 5 minutes to go to the main stage where there's Alex Stokes with a fascinating call about MEV. If you're staying here, you're either a Lido spy or you know me. So so appreciate you being here. Okay, so taking decentralization beyond current borders. When I talk about borders, I talk about borders quite literally. Before we can move on to decentralization, I think it'll be good to do a big refresher of what decentralization is, because we sometimes can get lost about what's important about decentralization, whether centralization has value in itself or decentralization is a means to an end. Well, decentralization, I like to see it as a gradient with emerging properties. What does it mean? It means that if you have a system that's designed for Byzantine fault tolerance and all of these fancy words that we have for decentralized systems, but you have only one node, you have a centralized system. You have one single point of failure, you have one database, we have no redundancy, so you have basically a centralized system. If you happen to have 2 nodes in that system, you got some very, very basic type of data redundancy. Those 2 nodes could be, for example, maybe in the same house, in the same data center. So you get like some sort of data redundancy, but not decentralization yet. If you have these nodes in different locations, all of a sudden you have resilience to natural disasters. This is an emerging property that emerges by the fact that they are in different natural in natural areas, in different areas. If you have nodes in different power grids, you are resilient to the power grid going down. If you have nodes in different political jurisdictions, you are resilient to government interference, meaning that if a government in one of these jurisdictions want to tackle or attack your protocol, you don't care, it keeps running, the protocol keeps running because it's in more places. Nodes in different type of hardware means that you have resistance to hardware vulnerabilities, zero-day exploits, etc. Different client implementations. Why do you think we have Prism, Lighthouse, Lodestar, Aragon, Geth? If there's a bug in the implementation of one of them, the protocol will still keep going. And then we have like system-specific properties, right? Like validator ownership, what is the hash rate concentration, you have different needs for bandwidth, you have the storage concentration if it's a system that is very dependent on storage, like IPFS, Filecoin, these sort of systems. And this is nothing new. This is not new from decentralized systems. This is a concept called CMF, common mode failure, which in aerodynamics is used all of the time. If you have a plane and you only have one sensor that detects temperature and this sensor controls a crucial part, if the sensor goes haywire, the whole plane goes haywire. So you need to have different types of sensors, etc., etc. This is not new to the centralized worlds. All right, we know what decentralization is right now. We have like a good understanding and a common language, a common base to start the discussion. So let's talk about solo staking. Who is solo staking in here? Who has a validator? Good. Okay, we're like 2 people in the room, so 2 of them staking is good. No, I'm exaggerating. Solo staking is considered the gold standard of decentralization. It's not the gold standard of performance. It's not the gold standard of economies of scale or cost efficiency, but it is considered the gold standard for decentralization. And we have established why decentralization is good because of this previous slide, right? So, solo staking works in any country. Anybody can use it. It works with different ISPs, it works with different power grids, and it is small and nimble. Solo staking favors small and nimble setups. It favors variety. One node caters to very few validators, so if one node goes down, the person who runs this node will be affected, but the network as a whole won't care that much. So it's very resistant. It contributes a lot of value for the network. Downtime is irrelevant for the network, and your node going down is not a point of failure for the network. And that's why Ethereum is designed to be very, very permissive with these sort of setups, meaning that the downtime is not penalized a lot. And what is penalized is correlated penalties, meaning that if you have a big operator that goes down and thousands of validators go down at the same time, you get correlated penalties and you get a big penalty. This is meant to disincentivize centralization. Right, so where has this get us? Where we have a system that favors decentralization, that favors solo staking, and it has gotten us to more than 800K validators. That's a lot of validators. And in 13,000 nodes in more than 85 countries. So overall, having a protocol that's geared towards favoring solo stakers in some sort of way and disincentivizing big actors has served us well. But let's dig a little bit deeper on what are the limitations of solo staking. How many of you know what the Nakamoto coefficient is? Nakamoto coefficient? No one. That's right. The Nakamoto coefficient is the number of entities that need to be compromised to compromise the network, right? And the Nakamoto coefficient, sometimes some Puritans, the Nakamoto coefficient can be decided for many, many different vectors, many different verticals, like how many countries need to go down, how many machines need to go down, how many entities, how many owners of the network need to go down. So tell me a number about the Ethereum network. What do you think the Nakamoto coefficient is for the Ethereum network? How, like overall, if we take the worst case scenario. Very optimistic, 4 or 5. Very optimistic. More than a third of the nodes are in the United States and more than 50% between the United States and Germany. So this is geopolitical Nakamoto coefficient, and that's why I mentioned this. It is not necessarily a logical or a architectural Nakamoto coefficient. It's a geopolitical Nakamoto coefficient, and it is of 1. We don't finalize if we have the United States going black for whatever reason, right? And if United States and Germany go black, then we don't have Ethereum anymore, basically. So solo staking has served us well, and this is arguably a very, very, very unlikely scenario, but it has limitations. Why this concentration in these countries? Well, these countries are countries that have disposable wealth, meaning that people can take risks with their money. Cryptocurrency is still a very risky affair, and people in rich countries can afford to invest on cryptocurrency and put 32 ETH in there. There's also a lot of availability of information in English, and rich countries tend to use English as one of their main languages. Most people tend to speak English and be able to read this information. Cryptocurrency evolves very fast, and information often is only available in English because it's produced in English, and by the time it's been translated to another language, there's already a new paper in English that disproves the first paper, so to speak, or a new EIP or a new discussion. The evolution of it happens in English. And finally, the rich countries have trustworthy internet connections and power grids. So we have the concentration. So people tend to trust their validator setups a lot more if they are in rich countries. Now, solo staking has limitations, but traditional pools are not going to help us because they're based on the same countries. We have Lido and Coinbase having more than 1/3 of the Ethereum network. So the Nakamoto coefficient when it comes to entities is of 2. Now Lido over there will tell me, yeah, but Lido, what can Lido do? What can Lido, like it's very secure, it's different validators. Sure, but politically they are still controlled by 2 entities. And if there was an all-out war on crypto, that would happen. I hope it doesn't happen. Now a little intermission of why am I talking about solo stakers and why am I bashing on solo stakers on a solo staker conference? Like I'm not, I swear I'm not. Yeah, there we go. I made them freak out with this. It's me. It's my it's my slide. Yeah, so DAppNode so basically why I'm bashing is because I think we can overcome these limitations while we're making Ethereum even more decentralized. And here is who I am. I am Lanski, COO of DAppNode, and DAppNode is a free open source project that allows you to run validators and other nodes with one single click privately on your own machine and without any technical knowledge. DAppNode comes in 2 flavors: plug-and-play hardware that's pre-installed with our free open source software, and of course the free open source software that you can install anywhere where you want. This is how it looks. We have a dApp store where you can install all of the dApp stores, LSDs, Rocket Pool, Hopper, Privacy Networks, Rotkey for your accounting, Avalanche, an OP node, etc. You have this dApp store, which is decentralized. It's a smart contract on Ethereum, and the distribution of the package happens over IPFS. So you never connect to a server that we control. And then we have like nice UI things that we have developed, like these stakers UI, where you can choose an execution client, a consensus client, the keys on the Web3 signer. You can choose which relayers, whether you want OFAC compliant or not, and all of this without touching any sort of command line. So DAppNode is great for non-technical users because you never need to touch command line. It's open source. It has a permissionless SDK where you can create, you've seen all of these apps like Rotkey and stuff. You can create, if you have your own chain, you have anti-chain, then you can create a package and put it on the dApp store permissionlessly with our SDK. It has built-in tooling, like a VPN to connect to your DAppNode from wherever you are. Even if you have this server in your own home, you don't need to deal with IPs or networking. We take care of this with a WireGuard open source VPN as well. It is great for POS staking and runs great on normal hardware. You don't need anything special, a NUC, and we have an amazing community that will help you debug or troubleshoot or anything weird. Now Ethereum, a little bit what happens with Ethereum. We don't know how many dApp nodes are out there. And we don't know how many validators are out there. We have no idea. We have no way to know because we have no telemetry. When you run DAppNode, you run it in your own machine and there's no telemetry. You install the software from GitHub and you put it in your machine. But when you use DAppNode, the default validator Graffiti is validating from DAppNode. And from this, we can extract on-chain data of all the validators that have left the Graffiti without changing it. And then we come to a minimum of 3,376 validators as of yesterday, self-reported as using DAppNode, which is around $228 million of solo stakers using DAppNode. So that's, I mean, with this authority, if this is any authority, I think we provide some value, and this is how we want to provide a little bit more value by moving beyond solo staker. We see the limitations for it, and we want to move beyond it. One last thing, and I got to shield that, because we secret launched our smoothing pool. A smoothing pool for any solo stakers that don't need to have DAppNode. So solo stakers here, you are subject to a lot of variance when it comes to MEV rewards, and when it comes to high fees, and when it comes to block proposals. So you don't know when you're going to propose a block, and if you're lucky, you're going to propose more than 3. If you're unlucky, you're going to propose less than 3. So subscribing to a smoothing pool allows you to earn rewards consistently and smooth out these rewards. Same for periods where the fees are high. Maybe you propose 3 blocks, but they're all at moments where the fees are really low. Finally, the MEV lottery, you don't know, if you propose 3 blocks a year on average, which is, you get to this number by multiplying the number of validators now between the amount of epochs, of slots in a year, and you get 3 of them. It's very rare that with 3 blocks you'll get a lottery block. They're called lottery because they are rare. So subscribing to MEV smoothing pool can substantially reduce this variance, and for most people, that will make them more profitable. So the official launch will be next week, but it is already live since yesterday, and you can already subscribe to your validators by going to smooth.dabnode.io. And this is the alpha. If you do that, we are currently donating. You see this donate button over there? This is a public goods funding mechanism. You can donate directly to every single solo staker by donating to the pool. Every single solo staker that subscribes to the pool, of course. So when we have critical mass of solo stakers subscribe to the pool, we can literally incentivize solo stakers and bump up their rewards by donating directly to the pool. So not only it's just beneficial and you will get more rewards, but we will do campaigns as a community to get people to donate, maybe a Gitcoin grant, maybe a Giveth grant, to donate directly to all of the solo stakers that are in the smoothing pool. Now enough with the intermission. Now you know where I come from. So now you know the problematic. And the good news is that we have the solution already. The solution already exists. We just need to put the pieces together. So number 1, we need liquidity. If we need to put more validators in places that are not centralized, that are outside of the US and Germany and Europe and the Western countries, what we need is liquidity. We need permissioned and permissionless models to accept new node operators. These new models usually currently require either a bond, like Rocket Pool, you would need a bond of 8 ETH, or a DVT, which is not clear how this is going to be or what bond you're gonna need, but liquidity. But you gotta convince these people. You gotta convince these people, the liquidity providers, the people that have liquidity, like Lido. Lido gets a ton of liquidity. Ether.fi has liquidity. Stakehouse has liquidity. Stakewise v3 will create vaults that will be able to aggregate liquidity. So all of these have the liquidity, but how should they trust a node in Kenya? The other piece of the puzzle is communities. Communities that are groups of people that translate the language, that try to overcome this language barrier that we're talking about. People that have ability to pool economic resources, and communities that already exist and that already are embedded into the ecosystem. We have ETHKipu, ETHKL, we have like a bunch of different communities all over the world that could go to these liquidity providers, these liquidity aggregators, so to speak, and say, hey, we want to run validators for you, and this is where Lido community module is going, and where the vaults of Stakewise v3 is going, and where the operation solo staker from EtherFi is going, etc., etc. And now, finally, but okay, so even then, if I am a community in Kenya, it's going to be hard for me to convince a liquidity provider to put liquidity in my node because it's not going to be reliable. So here's where the pieces start coming together. You need hardware infrastructure that, thanks to the software layer, all the DVT solutions have. You can run it on different hardware that, because of the qualities of DVT, you don't need even to have it 100% uptime. You don't need to have these nodes up all of the time. You can have lower performance because if you're part of a group, by the way, everyone aware of DVT? If you've been listening in this conference, you probably have heard of DVT. Yeah? Is there anybody that doesn't? Don't be afraid of raising your hand. Okay, everybody knows about DVT, perfect. So yeah, thanks to DVT, it becomes like basically these communities have the power to organize and offer performance that's very similar to a professional operator, and in any case, even better than a solo staker. If you were saying that solo staker was what the protocol was designed for, and the protocol was very permissive and accepted the fault tolerances or like the little ups and downs of a solo staker, when you are a community staker, this variance is even less. So you're even better than a solo staker. So we have the 4 pieces. We have communities that can run hardware infrastructure, that runs software, DVT, and that has the ability to, running all of this stack, to present themselves as trustworthy node operators for liquidity providers. So they are able to attract liquidity and become node operators for these liquidity providers, or for personal entities, or even for themselves. So this is not fantasy, this is happening. There's the DV Stakers group that reached out to us and said like, hey, can we put a dApp node in Kenya? And we said, fuck yeah. And we put a dApp node in Kenya, and there's like a bunch of DVT nodes with Operation Solo Staker. We're building a blog with ETH Kipu. Want to hear ETH Kipu? There we go. We're building a node with ETH Kipu, a community node. This one is in Kenya. This one, I don't know where that is, Ebonayo of Africa. But yeah, we have like nodes all over the place that all of a sudden they couldn't participate in the network directly because they didn't have the ETH and they didn't have the reliability. And now, thanks to that 4-layered stack, they can. So, communities are spread out all across the world. They can gain access to revenue from the base layer that is non-speculative revenue if you believe in ETH. It is low investment, but you get high exposure to the upside of collecting this base layer, this base ETH, and it can be very useful for redistribution of wealth as well for the decentralization of the network. It can be very beneficial for the network and for breaking through this Nakamoto coefficient of 1. So one of the things that we are considering a dApp node, this is not a satanic pentagram. This is a cluster of 5 nodes. And when you have a cluster of 5 nodes, you don't actually need them to be running full nodes. You don't actually need really beefy machines and everybody to run a really expensive machine. You actually would need only 1 or 2 beefy machines that are able to run a full node, an Ethereum full node, and the other one could be the backup, and the other ones could be like ARM, Raspberry Pis, really low-powered machines that really only have like a key share, and they keep signing these attestations, and they keep signing these proposals, and they connect for beacon and execution. They connect to these 2. So we get a setup that overall the cost is not much higher, not a lot higher than what we had before for solo staking, and it's a lot more resilient. It's a lot more resilient. You get a coordination layer based on the community that can also coordinate and aggregate and be able to attract liquidity because they are semi-professional, they are community, they are a new class of stakers, they're community stakers. And with something like this, it can become a reality real quick. So, who thinks the bull market is coming? So some people think that it's already here. Beautiful, that's perfect. So don't be the virgin DeFi crypto bro. Don't be exit liquidity. Don't, like, TA is not a thing, all right? I love this meme, I made it myself. What you should do is be a Chad staker. Stack LSDs on your machine like they're pancakes. And this is a very attractive, non-speculative, or at least not that much speculative option that you have for this new bull market and capture all the fee revenue that will happen. If you want a dApp node, hit me up. And you can install it. It's free open source software. And I can teach you how to do it. You can go to our website. We have tutorials. We have everything, dappnode.com. There's the Twitter for dApp node. You can change Twitter for a letter X, apparently, I heard. And follow this. Paul Lanski, that's me. and join our Discord to have some proof that we are not coming out of the woodwork. We were there, and we in fact have a really strong community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lanski. We have a few minutes for questions, if anybody has one.
I feel like the president now.
All good? Okay. Well, thanks you again.
Perfect. Thanks to you guys. You missed a really good talk on the other session.